Is that a Supra? That's right everyone, today is Supra Day and we're going to dive deep into the suspension system of the legendary Mark IV Toyota Supra, so stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Mechanical Warriors. My name's Josh Cab and in this episode we're going to dive into the suspension setup, the stock suspension setup that made the Supra a beacon in automotive performance. We're going to strip the two K-frames and give them a fresh coat of paint and install a fully adjustable suspension kit as well as rebuild the diff. Let's go! So me and Dad focus on the front K-frame, stripping it down to its last nut and bolt. This part is where you get your hands really dirty. I gave all the parts a quick Kero bath, and I'm not using gloves here and I later regretted it as I burnt the skin on my hands, so remember to wear gloves guys. After the clean, here is what I was left with. Okay guys, so bar the K-frame itself and the sway bar and a few other little bits and pieces, this is everything off the front K-frame or front suspension for the Supra. Our next job is to figure out which parts we're going to keep and which parts we're going to replace with aftermarket gear. These control arms, I can already tell you we're going to be replacing the bottom ones. Top ones we're going to keep OEM. As for the braking capacity, I'm not 100% sure on what the stock Supra brakes can handle or what they can do. And given the fact that we're going to be putting 1200 horsepower through this car, we want to be able to pull it up as fast as we're accelerating. So I'm going to look into the braking capacity and see whether we need to beef them up or not. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Next thing we've got to do is order all the gear to add on to this K-frame. Then we'll get the K-frames all painted up and ready, whack them under the car, and then when the rest of this gear gets here, we'll bolt it all up and the K-frames will be officially done. So I went to work ordering all of the obvious parts I knew I would be replacing, like the control arms, ball joints, and links for the sway bars. Not to my surprise, but I found almost everything on eBay. After I had ordered all the parts, it was time to chat to some local businesses about brakes. After talking with several businesses and even consulting with ChatGTP, I was left with a very hard decision to make.
So what's the verdict, man?
Well, the verdict is we either spend $17,000 on brakes or we don't. So we need to have a little bit of think about this. Let's go outside to the brakes and have a rational bit of thinking about this.
A bit more logical, hey?
Yeah. All right, let's talk these brakes for a minute. So these brakes are capable of pulling up the Supra from 100 kilometers an hour. And we are doing this thing for a street registered vehicle. So 100 kilometers an hour is all you're legally allowed to do. It's going to be a show car, a 1200 horsepower street registerable car. But are we going to be doing excessively over 300 kilometers an hour and needing $17,000 brakes to pull us up regularly at 300 kilometers an hour? And I'm guessing probably no. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to rebuild these brakes as they are. We're going to put slotted and dimpled rotors, which is basically cuts or grooves in these rotors that will give us a 25% increase in our braking capacity from the stock brakes themselves. That in combination with a good pad, then we're going to, during the test and tune phase of the car, we'll see if we have any dramas with the brakes. If we do, then we'll look at upgrading the brakes. Otherwise, we're going to stick to what we got and save $17,000 in our pocket, hopefully. So that's what we're going to do with the brakes. But the next thing we've got to do, we've ordered all the parts and everything's coming, but while we're waiting, things like this, all these pieces have to be cleaned up and painted. All of these pieces here, all got to be cleaned and painted. So We're gonna go through, get all that ready, so when the parts do get here, everything's nice and shiny and we're just bolting together really awesome looking stuff. So let's get stuck into that. So now I had to clean and sand each part one by one, making sure to remove all the years of grease, grit and grime built up over everything. This job is a lot more tedious than it looks, but with the help of some coarse sandpaper and good old-fashioned dishwashing liquid, I managed to get the result I was after. Some parts required the high-pressure cleaner to get into the areas my fingers could not. I found the Dremel came in handy when cleaning the calipers and wheel hubs. There was a few parts like the wheel hubs and calipers that I had to mask up so that I did not get paint in the areas that would cause damage to the part. After I'd spent 20 million hours cleaning and scrubbing, I hung up the parts outside using tie wire and gave them all a quick clean with grease and wax remover. I was then ready to hit them with undercoat and 2-pack paint. This entire process took me a little over 2 days to complete. After I was finished, here is what I was left with. Okay guys, so we've finished painting up all of the bits and pieces that we're going to reuse on the K-frame. It all came out really, really well. I'm going to be reassembling these hubs next. The only thing that wasn't painted was this part of the K-frame, which I've decided to go get powder coated at Cairns Powder Coating because it just wound up being way cheaper and it's just going to be a mongrel to do that myself. So that's going away to be powder coated. The rest of these parts, we're going to assemble what we can. I'm still waiting for some bits and pieces to finish the brake calipers. So once they get here, we can finish them. After I've assembled everything, we're going to move on to the rear K-frame, do the same thing, strip the entire thing back to its last nut and bolt, and we'll paint the pieces that we're going to reuse, and then same deal, put it all back together, get it ready to be put underneath the car. So before we put these K-frames under the car, we're going to be spraying like a rhino spray underneath the car, which is a type of rubber protection stuff that will make it black underneath, but it'll also protect it from stone chips and stuff like that. So let's get stuck into assembling what we can here, and then we'll move on to the rear K-frame. Before I get started with the assembly of the brakes and wheel hubs, I need to replace all the bolts with shiny new ones. So I'm off to see the boys at Bolt Masters to get everything replaced. Replacing the bolts and nuts on every build really adds to the pop factor when looking at the finished product, so I highly recommend doing this. Now that I have all my bolts, let the fun begin. Okay guys, so before we start putting this stuff together, I've still got a few more little bits and pieces that are coming, like seals and stuff like that, which will be here before the end of the week, so we will be assembling all this stuff this week. We've got to prepare the underside of the car so we can bolt all this stuff straight away. So let's go over to the car quickly. I'll show you what we're going to do. So this whole underbody of the car, we've got to sand back, get all the shine off of this old rust protection stuff, rub it all back and spray it. We're going to be spraying it with this stuff here, Raptor. It's I've heard good things about this stuff. It's pretty easy to spray as well, so I'm looking forward to getting into that. But before we do that, we've got to fix a little bit of damage here to the undercarriage. So I'm going to have to cut this out. And I'm not sure whether I'm going to cut this whole piece out and weld up another piece with this still in here, or cut this out and go over to the fabricators, get them to bend me something up and then weld the new piece in. I'm thinking I'm going to do that. I think it'll be easier doing it that way. So first step, we'll cut this out, get something sorted for here, weld it back in, and then once all this is back looking pretty again, we can start sanding this whole thing down. We'll mask it all up and then hit it with the Raptor spray. So let's go.
3, 2, 1, go.
So guys, my first task was to fix the damage done to the undercarriage. I used an angle grinder to cut and remove the damaged part of the chassis and had a new piece bent up at my local sheet metal shop. Then I welded it with small tack welds to avoid too much heat getting into the metal. After that, I hit it with rust converter and Sikaflex to seal it from the elements. Here's what it looked like when I was finished. Now I'm ready to mask up the underside of the car and get it ready to spray the Raptor liner. After I was done, it was time to mix up the liner. This is the first time I've used this product and I found it very simple to use, as the kit comes with a gun, a measuring cup, and the bottles screwed directly to the gun, which was pretty cool. Spraying the liner, I found you get a better texture if you keep the gun moving before you pull the trigger. With the undercarriage now complete, it's time to focus on the rear K-frame. Just like the front K-frame, I stripped it down to its last nut and bolt, then laid out all the parts for inspection and cleaning. After cleaning all the parts and the K-frame itself, it was time to give them a fresh coat of paint. Before applying paint, I hit all the parts with 2-pack undercoat, then 2-pack color. Because I had 2 colors to spray, I did the red first, then moved them parts inside to dry and continued with the black. I gave everything 2 coats of paint and then gave them 24 hours to dry and harden. Okay guys, so that's everything for the parts that we're reusing for the rear K-frame and front K-frame, all painted up. This is all the parts from the front K-frame, and the rear parts are over here on this counter here. You can see there's the wheel hubs, brake protector thingies, I'm not sure what they're called, brake calipers, a few little bits for the K-frame there. Here's the rear K-frame here. So that we still are missing a few bits and pieces to bolt on to both K-frames. We still don't even have the front part of the K-frame from Cairns powder coating yet. So once they send that to us, we'll be able to finish the job completely. But one thing we can do is bolt this K-frame back up under the car. So let's go have a look at the car with the Raptor lining now done. So that rear K-frame will bolt up underneath here. And you can see the Raptor lining is basically everywhere where stones could hit the vehicle, all up underneath the wheel arches on both sides and down underneath the car here. This area here is covered by fuel tanks, so we don't really need to worry about that. That's why there's no Raptor lining there. And this section here is basically protected by the K-frame. So once we get them, we can bolt that K-frame up. Then we just wait for them other parts to get here. As soon as they get here, it's all brand new gear, so we'll just be bolting stuff on new, and then basically front and rear K-frame will be done, and we can move on to the next big thing, which will be the engine. So let's get stuck into it. After me and Dad finished installing the rear K-frame, I packed the front hub bearings into the bearing cages and then repacked them with grease. When doing this, make sure your hands are clean and give all the parts a quick Kero bath to ensure there is no grit you may have missed. Give all the bearings a generous serving of grease and spin the bearings to push the grease into the areas of the bearing cage. With clean hands again, I installed the front and rear bearing oil seals. Using a hammer and a socket extender as a punch, I lightly tapped the seals into the hub until it was sitting flush with the edge of the outer hub. Next, it's time to install the rotor brake dust shield. This is held in by 4 M6 bolts, which I replaced with stainless ones. When torquing these down, don't over tighten them. A good method I use, try using the strength of what your wrist can deliver, holding a small 1" 4th drive ratchet, or about 10 Newton meters of torque if you want to use a torque wrench. I got the second hub ready as well, packing the bearings with grease and installing the seal and the dust shield. Now it's time to press the hubs into the wheel bearings. This process can be a little tricky, as you must make sure that the outer hub and the inner hub are parallel with one another before you press them in. If you press them in on an angle, you can risk damaging the bearing and you may have to start over again, so take your time. Now it's time to screw the rear nut that holds the hub into the housing. This nut needs to be torqued down to 235 Newton meters. Over tightening this bolt will result in extra heat being put into the bearings and can cause the grease to boil out and the bearings to fail prematurely. Once you got it right, lock the nut off, then hammer the end caps on, and the hub is assembled and ready to go. Next, it's time to assemble the front brake calipers. I started by replacing the rubber seals with new ones, making sure to lube up the rubber on the inside and the bore with rubber grease, or you can use Vaseline. Then I installed the rubber boots and the front section of the caliper onto the caliper carriers. Please note, when rebuilding anything with hydraulic fluid, do not use any petroleum-based oils or lubricants. This will cause the rubbers to swell and the seals to fail. With the front brakes all done, it was time to install the rear section of the front K-frame using brand new nuts and bolts, followed by the front main section of the K-frame. Being careful not to bump or scratch anything, I installed the 4 bolts that hold the K-frame into place and torqued them down. With the K-frame now in place, I installed these small connecting tabs that connect the front section to the rear section of the K-frame, again using new bolts and washers, and torqued them down. Okay, now it's starting to get interesting as I install the first lower control arm to the K-frame. Remember, these bolts are adjustable, so make sure you orientate the adjustment dial the correct way. With the control arm in place, it's time to install the bracket that attaches the bottom of the shock absorber to the control arm. We are now ready to install the shock absorber and attach the lower control arm to the shocky. This will later need to be adjusted for the car's ride height, but for now my focus is to just get it all together and all tightened up. Same with the other side, I fitted the lower control arm, shocky bracket and shocky into the car and bolted the two together just like the right hand side. There was a few other small brackets to attach to the K-frame and what I can only assume to be some sort of tension rod which attaches to the rear camber adjustments. Putting this K-frame together, I learnt how well Toyota designed the suspension in the Mark IV, because underneath these things, they truly are a beast. Now for the front sway bar. The sway bar bolts up to 2 blocks held in by 3 M8 bolts each side. After fitting the blocks, I then attached the sway bar and connected the 2 sway bar links to the left and right hand side control arms. Using an Allen key and a ratchet spanner, I torqued them down like so. With the lower control arms and sway bar now done, it's time to fit the upper control arms, which bloody took 12,000 years to get here from the USA. Anyhow, once I got this in place, we are now ready to install our wheel hubs, which we assembled earlier. This process is very straightforward as the wheel hub is held in by 2 castle nuts on the top and bottom of the wheel hub. These nuts need to be torqued to 186 Newton meters and then a split pin fitted to ensure they never come undone. Once the hubs are in place, we can now fit our beautiful slotted and dimpled disc rotors. Next in line is our brake calipers, which we assembled earlier. I don't have pads in these yet as I'm still waiting for them to come in the mail. So I'm just going to finger tight these brakes on for now. Moving on to the left hand side, it's time to fit the upper control arm and bolt the wheel hub to the upper and lower control arms. Then fit our rotor and brake caliper. Bar the steering rack, the front suspension is almost ready. It's now time to focus on the rear K-frame. I'm starting by installing the upper control arm and torquing it down using a socket and wrench and ratchet spanner. These bolts need to be torqued to 115 Newton meters. I'm also using washers and nylon locking nuts for added protection. With that done, it's time to fit the rear toe arm and the rear lower control arm to the K-frame. The toe arm needs to be torqued to 90 Newton meters, while the lower control arm needs to be 115 Newton meters. Now we fit the rear shocky to the car and bolt the lower control arm to the shock. Again guys, I'm using brand new locking nuts, washers and bolts throughout this entire build. Now we are ready to bolt the rear wheel hub on, which we assembled earlier. I gotta say here guys, there is something so soothing about bolting shiny things onto shiny things. It's so rewarding, I'm really enjoying this part. Here I'm installing the traction rod arms onto the wheel hub. These control arms need to be torqued to 115 Newton meters. After fitting all of the split pins to all of the castle nuts, it's now time to move on to assembling the rear brake calipers, which is similar to the front. I replaced the rubber seals, boots, and reassembled the calipers ready to go back on the car. Now I can fit the rear brake disc rotors and the brake caliper. Again, I have no brake pads at all yet, guys, so once they get here I'll be fitting the park brake and the brake pads then. Now onto the last side, pretty much the same thing again, installing the tow arms, upper and lower control arms, installing the shocky, bolting the wheel hub to the control arms and assembling the rotor and brake caliper. But if you think all this looks cool, wait till you see what I show you next.
Yo, Josh.
Hey, what's up?
Been preparing something for you at the back, bro.
Yeah, what's that?
A delivery.
What sort of delivery?
A heavy one.
A heavy delivery.
Yep.
Oh, yes. It's the wheels. How good is this? 295s on the back, 235s on the front. Let's put them on. We've got the bolts here.
Yep, right here.
Oh, fuck yeah. Alright, I'm putting the back one on first. So I believe this was Gabrielle from Aussie Tyres in Sydney that sorted us out with these. Oh, look at that. I can already tell that this is going to look amazing. Let's just get one in there. Wow, look at that. Look at the dish on this thing. That's a 90mm dish on a 295. I'm putting the front one on. I have to say, these came very quick. They didn't mess around. The boys at Aussie Tyres, I have to commend them on that. Oh, this just looks incredible. Wow. How good does that look? They just look awesome, don't they? I'll tell you what, we're pretty much done here now. Let's put the other two tyres on, put the car up on the hoist, go underneath, I'll explain everything that we've done so far. We'll put the car back down on the ground and give you a 360-degree view of the stance with it on the ground. Let's do it. Alright guys, so we've got the car up. Let's go through all of the stuff that we've replaced. So basically, as you can see, we've got the upper and lower control arms all adjustable. We can adjust the ride height, spring tension here through our adjustable suspension. We can adjust the toe in and toe out. The K-frames, we've repainted the K-frames. Obviously Raptor liner, we've sprayed underneath the wheel arches, everywhere where it could be exposed to stone chips. If we come around here and check out the wheels and these slotted and dimpled rotors, they just look awesome, I reckon. I love this whole combination of color. It's just beautiful. So that's pretty much the back side of the car done. The Raptor liner continues all the way through. As you can see, this Raptor liner, they use it inside utes and stuff like that. And people put toolboxes and all sorts of things on top of it. And you cannot scratch through this stuff. It is tough as nails. So it's a little bit overkill for what we're doing, but it'll never scratch through, it'll never rust, it'll protect it through the life of the car. So that's awesome. Now moving on to the front, again, we've replaced the upper and lower control arms. The top control arm here we've kept to an OEM control arm. The bottom one is a fully adjustable one, so we can adjust toe in, toe out, as well as camber on the bottom. We have replaced all the nuts and bolts throughout this entire build, every single one. The only things that we've kept is stuff that is unique, like the adjustable camber bolts, which was just going to take too long to get from Toyota, so we opted to just clean the ones we've got. And again, like if you have a look in here, it just looks beautiful. Seeing all that new suspension control arms, everything just looks fabulous. And coming around on this other side here, and just have a look at these wheels and these slotted and dimpled rotors. I mean, they just look amazing. It's such a nice color combination. Come and have a look on this side. That side's a little bit dark. Come and have a look on this side. You can see it a little bit better. We'll give you a full 360 view of this and close-up detail, but have a look at that. Just awesome. I love these Pro Drag rims. They really just make the car pop. I've got these same rims on my RX-8, but this is a different version of them. It's painted black, whereas mine, this section of the rims is still the alloy color. So a little bit of a twist with the colors there, but I think they suit the car really, really well. All the K-frames and everything up the front as well has been powder coated and spruced back up to new again. Like I said, anywhere you can stick your hand anywhere in this car and you will not get grease or dirt anywhere. It doesn't matter where you put it, your hands are clean. So next thing I want to do is put this car on the ground and give you guys a 360-degree view around the whole car. Let's go and do it. Go.
Let me show you what I got.
Okay guys, before I show you this car, I want to show you how to get your tickets into the draw to win this car. We've got a special promotion going for the next 3 days only. You get 4 times the ticket entries for the same price. This includes existing members or any new members that we have coming on board. So don't miss out on this one-time offer. To get your tickets in the draw, all you need to do is head to our website, mechanicalwarriors.com.au, or download our app via the Google Play or Apple App Store. Just search Mechanical Warriors and you'll find it there. Remember guys, also by supporting this build, you're also supporting our charity, which is Destiny Rescue. These guys go in and rescue kids out of the sex trafficking world and bring them back to our families. So by supporting Mechanical Warriors, you're also supporting them. So don't miss out on this one-time offer, 3 days only. Do it now. Get your tickets in now. Do it.
I lick my lips and shake my hips. I see you want a piece of this. The way I move is addictive. You're hooked on me like cigarettes. Can't look away from my body. Now you wanna get naughty. We gon' have a private party. Come on now, let's get it started. Shake, shake. What my mama gave me, the heat is rising. Our pulses racing. The way I'm feeling is so amazing. Let's keep it going until the AM. Once we started, it can't be stopped. Our chemistry is going off the charts. Walking around looking like movie stars. Love so rare, like it came from Mars. I lick my lips and shake my hips. I see you want a piece of this. The way I move is addictive.
Okay everyone, so we're wrapping this up. This is the K-frame finished. I wanted to clear up a few things before we finish this off. And the parts like this, these holes around here, I've got, basically I'm gonna be doing some 3D inserts that I'm gonna put in there, which will be black. Same along the back here. These holes along the back are gonna have 3D inserts put in, as well as kind of like a spoiler drop that will come out, or diffuser I should say. It'll come down about sort of yay high on each one of these points. So one here, 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 and here, and they will obviously slide in there like so. And then obviously the same around on this side here, another insert there. So there we have it guys. That is the K-frames done on this car. We're now gonna move on to the engine build. That's next, which is gonna be awesome. I can't wait to get stuck into the engine. So stick around for the next episode. Thanks everyone for all the support. And as always guys, enjoy the car scene. We'll see you for the next one.
Like it came from Mars.